Hello and welcome to Nanosecond Media Psychology Special. Today, I have Brent.
Hey everyone, how's it going?
So won't we start? Let's have you tell kind of what you do.
Sure, yeah. So my name's Brent. I'm a psychiatric mental health nurse practitioner. I'm based in the Akron area. I work at a community behavioral health center. So I see a variety of different patients struggling with addiction, anxiety, depression, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, personality disorders, mood disorders, anything you could pretty much think of, we manage. So.
So, getting into the pandemic side of things, which we kind of got into a little bit before. What What effects do you think the pandemic had in the way of the obviously you might not have the stats, but like of victimization of any type of abuse being the fact that people were together a lot more,
You're
isolated
talking
with
in the family
family.
setting. Yeah, yeah, for sure. So obviously with the pandemic, social isolation was one of the biggest factors. We weren't having those face-to-face conversations, the in-person check-ins, and we mostly transferred over to telehealth services. So lots of video, but to speak on, the more traumatic side of things, PTSD, people dealing with that, and maybe being around family members that are triggering or contributing to some symptoms, yeah, I could see that being a huge concern. Like you said, I don't really have any statistics on it, but sometimes these people come from really broken families, and there's all kinds of stuff: sexual assault, physical assault, emotional, pretty much anything you could think of. So, and because I work with a pretty underserved population, they don't always have the financial means necessary to remove themselves from that situation. Um, a lot of my people, are on Medicaid, supplemental income from the government, things like that. So they might not have the transportation or means to get away. So, yeah, I could see that being a huge trigger. Being around maybe family members or friends that are contributing to um, the feelings that they're having, the symptoms that they're having, even addiction. That's huge with. So, you know,
Oh yeah. Uh, I mean that's scary, especially when everything is isolated like that. What people could suffer through and nobody know about. What is in person counseling better than over the y- like virtual,
yeah,
whether it's phone
video.
or video chat?
Yeah, so we primarily do video nowadays. It's nice to at least see the person, but yeah, I think there's a huge difference. Like I said, going back to that social aspect of things, coming in face to face, it's a lot different than what you might see on somebody's camera. But that being said, sometimes you'll pick up things in the background on the video that you wouldn't notice in person. Their living environment, different people that are behind them, which most of the time they're not supposed to be. It's supposed to just be a one-on-one. But yeah, I think the therapeutic process it runs a lot more smoothly in person. But we do the telehealth primarily to provide access to people that don't, necessarily have the means to make it in person. So we are expanding care at the same point. So I do like that. But yeah, I prefer to see people face to face. You really get a better picture of kind of what's going on with them. You can pick up on different body language, and yeah, just overall, I found it a better experience at times.
So getting into what I started to before with the anxiety side of things, uh, and talking about the way it's depicted in the movie Inside Out,
Hmm.
and how spot on, at least through my experience with anxiety, that it just takes control
Hmm.
of you. And
Hmm.
if you don't get treated or get it treated quick enough, it's gonna make your life miserable.
Yeah, yeah, it can be overwhelming. That's what people often say. They have the racing thoughts, the intrusive thoughts. They're worrying all the time. As a result, they're not sleeping well. They have appetite changes, all kinds of stuff. It affects your entire bodily function. So yeah, I like. I know we were mentioning it earlier, how the movie depicted them bottling up emotions and kind of putting those on the back burner. And that's why I really encourage people to get involved with not only the medication side of things, which is kind of what I deal with. We do a little bit of therapy here and there, but I do like when they get in touch with our counselors and our therapists. We even have case management, and it gets them really connected. We do a lot of different, group therapy as well, just giving them coping skills and a way to, kind of deal with those, hit them head on, the anxiety, depression symptoms, everything like that. So um, I'm a big advocate for not only medicine but therapy as well. They go hand in hand.
So, do you what's the best advice you would give for somebody who through anxiety might overthink?
Best advice I could give somebody is don't keep it to yourself. Um, get help. That's the first step. Getting in and being able to open up and willing to talk about things is huge. Um, that's the biggest part of my job is asking these open-ended questions to get people to kind of tell me their backstory. That way, I know how to better treat them and kind of make it a collaborative effort. Where we're both deciding on what route of treatment's best to go for them. So, yeah.
Is there other ways to treat anxiety other than medicating?
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
like some people are against medicating.
yeah, most
What
definitely.
like what ways would you? Uh, what ways are there other than medicating?
So we're actually working on a quality improvement project right now, through 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 our community behavioral health center, and it's based on lifestyle medicine. I don't know if you're familiar with that. Have you ever heard of that?
Uh, I you've mentioned it to me before, and for those of you listening, I've known Brent for a long time. So
Yeah, about
anyway,
20 plus
uh,
years.
yeah. So,
So
explain to everybody what that is,
yeah, so
please.
lifestyle medicine is based on six pillars really, and I encourage this. I always ask these questions. It's basic things you could do. It could take 5 minutes of your time every day. Um, Biggest ones I like to ask about deal with nutrition. Are they following a healthy diet? That's one of the biggest things. Are we eating a lot of sugary foods? Are we consuming a lot of caffeine? You know, um, doing and trying to eat better, more well balanced diet, like including a lot of fruits, vegetables, maybe following a Mediterranean diet. I always recommend that. That's mostly fish, legumes, nuts, things like that. The other big thing too I like to hit on is physical activity. Exercise is key. That helps. It's been proven. There's statistics on it showing that it reduces anxiety and depression. Um, and I always tell my people, baby steps at first. If you're not used to doing physical activity, if you can get outside for 10, 20 minutes, if you can even walk around the house instead of sitting on the couch, cleaning up, um, vacuuming, doing any kind of basic house chores or anything like that is huge. Instead of just sitting around and kind of getting overwhelmed in your thoughts. And one of the biggest things that I like to hit on is sleep. Sleep is huge. Um, now, I can't remember what exactly academy it is, but there's a study with sleep medicine that recommends the adult human get about 7 to 9 hours of sleep per night. I typically recommend about 8. Um, Sleep deals with pretty much everything in mental health. It can lead to increased anxiety. It can lead to increased depression. It can cause mania, not getting enough sleep with the bipolar patients. It's huge. The other one we've kind of already hit on, which is the fourth pillar I'm talking about, is social connection. Um, we as humans, we're social beings, so we need that, whether it be face to face, calling your friend, not using I'm not a huge fan of or advocate of social media because there's a lot of bad stuff that goes down on there that's not necessarily good for us. There are some give it some good things that have come out of that, but predominantly there are more negative things than good things in the most part that I've noticed.
I
Um,
mean, you mentioned about the like calling friends. Like,
yeah,
do you sit or would you consider like video chatting
yeah,
a
I would say
good
that's even
way
better.
just to?
I would say that's even better. Yeah, most definitely. Any time you can get face to face interaction, even if it's through video, I mean, it's not the best. I'd recommend trying to get out there and if you have a huge problem with social anxiety, maybe just introducing yourself. Like I said, baby steps. It doesn't have to be a huge jump. You don't have to go to like a festival or an amusement park or like a beach. Something little, like a coffee shop or something with like 10 people in it. Even just sitting there, you might find it helpful. Um, some of the other big things, the other two pillars I wanted to mention with lifestyle medicine, if you're not a huge fan of taking medications, which I try to limit how much medications I give in the first place. If we can treat symptoms without medication, that's the goal. But sometimes they're necessary and they're needed for some people. So, but the other big one is managing stress. Stress is huge. We all deal with it. Um, Primarily, I'm talking about primarily bad stress because there's good stress or eustress, it's called. It's actually good for our body, but finding ways to manage that bad stress, whether it's listening to music, and not your like heavy metal,
Yeah.
loud blaring music. I'm talking about like jazz, soft rock. Um, I like Mozart, stuff that kind of calms you down and relaxes you. Dance is huge. Meditation's one of my favorite. Just taking 5 minutes, even if you're not huge into meditation, sitting there, silencing everything, just paying attention to your breathing. Huge. Yoga, I like that one. Um, and then the last thing I wanted to mention with lifestyle medicine would be avoiding risky substances. And this is drugs, alcohol, nicotine. Those all fall into that category. Those all have been shown to increase anxiety, increase depression, um, interfere with sleep. It just interferes with that normal bodily function. So if you can avoid some of those things, it's gonna make everything a little bit better for you.
What's your suggestion for somebody who is going through like a rough time? Let's say, um, like a breakup or a death of a family member.
Yeah,
Um, like, and like a lot of people cope with drugs and alcohol. What is the best coping strategy that you would give to somebody going through something like that?
I think the biggest thing, if I could, put it into a couple words, would be if you're comfortable with it, getting in touch with a therapist, talking to them. But at home, doing things such as, like I said, journaling. Journaling's huge. Writing down those thoughts, actually reading them out loud and working through them. um, Meditating on your thoughts, just you got to give yourself time, after if you're grieving and stuff like that. I mean, it's a
Mhm.
natural process. It's something that we all go through. It becomes more of a concern when it's prolonged, over greater than, I believe it's 6 months, if I'm not mistaken. I have to refresh on that, but yeah, for the most part, it's just, it goes back to that social aspect, connecting, being able or being willing to open up about some of your feelings instead of bottling them all up. That usually increases the anxiety. Um, just willing to talk to others is huge. If you have that one good friend, that one family member that you can go to, and you can be honest with them and tell them how you're feeling, it's big.
Um, yeah, that is so true. I'm just going back to see what exactly all the topics that I sent because
No,
my
you're fine.
memory is shot. Um,
You're
but um, let's talk about the pandemic. Where when it comes, we've touched on kind of the social aspect, but especially for the young kids, like who are developing social skills from that point of view, how damaging was the pandemic and shutting down everything for uh, the social side of things for kids?
I think it was a huge impact. And I mean, obviously, our generation, Eric, we know pre-pandemic. A lot of these kids
Mhm.
were, when this happened, that we're talking about maybe 12, 13, 14 years old. That's the time that
Mhm.
where you go out. Where we used to, especially, we'd hang out in our neighborhoods, go out, play, have fun, go fishing,
Yeah.
whatever, um, play sports together, and it
Oh
just
yeah.
wasn't happening. So I guess maybe they were staying connected through social media, but then again, there's a lot of stuff that goes on that's not necessarily great. One of the biggest things that kind of worries me is the cyberbullying side of things, um,
A-
and
And the
that's
sad
huge.
thing with that is that it's not just kids doing it now.
No,
It's parents bullying other people's kids, and that's, I mean, I don't think laws have caught up yet, but there needs to be uh, prosecution when it comes to that, because
I agree.
I mean, I remember there was a story about 10, 11 years ago of a girl in Florida who was being bullied by an adult who ended up hanging herself on a nuclear power plant.
Yeah, that's not the first time I've heard that. I've heard a lot of people that have committed suicide because of things that people have said or things that people have posted about them on the internet. Which brings me to a big point, which I wanted to hear your opinion on this too.
Okay.
Is what do you think of all the artificial intelligence coming out? I've heard this story of um, you know these images that are generated of teenagers, young girls, young guys, um, and it's explicit content.
Hmm.
It's like, and it's not even them. It's just their face posted on something. So, what are your thoughts on artificial intelligence?
It is a scary thing. I will say it's taking over the world in at a speed where we're we're in trouble because
Yeah,
the different, I mean, not only is it, used to scam people, and we're going to get into that later, but I mean, it's taking jobs from people. I just look more and more people in the broadcasting, especially in the radio side of things, they're actually being replaced by AI, like AI voices as talk
yeah,
show hosts.
yeah.
But
I can believe that.
getting that into getting back into the more concerning part of AI is that they're using AI to scam. Whether it's saying using a kid's voice and saying they're in trouble, calling their parent and saying they're in trouble, or vice versa. I mean, it's it's getting to a point where we need to figure out how to break the AI, like stop the AI before it gets
Yeah,
overboard.
there at least needs to be some regulations on it, and it's so new, and a lot of people think it's the next part of human evolution. And I was just joking around with my dad about this. I said, and you've probably seen this movie too, Eric, I Robot with Will Smith, or even
Uh,
even
I've
Terminator,
seen bits and pieces. Yeah.
where the like the robots take over. I mean,
Hmm.
that's kind of the drastic side of things. I don't know if that would necessarily happen, but these machines are learning based off of human input, but the purpose is for them to become even smarter than humans.
Hmm.
So
I mean,
those they could eventually take over, and if there's you know
I think I had told
malware or
you.
something, and
Sorry, go ahead. Did you?
be like,
Hold on, you pixelated and froze. So Um, so I don't remember if I had told you this back then, but one of the places I previously worked, they were talking about uh, having robotic maintenance machines and robotic um, like robots and drones do stock. Like that's one, it's loss of jobs. Two, that's unsafe. Hold on, you froze. Okay. While we're waiting for Brent to come back, um, I want to thank everybody who's listening. I appreciate the uh your time because I know that's a value to everybody. So I really appreciate that you guys were willing to join. And one of the topics we're going to get into is um, the dangers of social media, especially in the toxicity of the political. 1 second, Brent. Hold on. I just got to get you. Okay. Okay,
All
I
right,
just had to
sorry
click you
about
on.
that. I lost connection there. I don't know if it's my computer acting funny or what.
Oh, no. So, just going on the AI topic, um, we I don't remember, or I don't know if you heard me ask you. I don't remember if I told you this back at when I was at one of my old jobs that they were talking about getting robotic maintenance machines and robots and drones to do stock.
Oh,
Um,
that's interesting. I don't recall hearing about that. But yeah.
but I mean, it's just it's funny. I used to joke when I was at my first ever job, I would joke with customers about robots taking over my job. Again, joking, but soon
Yeah.
enough, they probably will.
Yeah, it could become a
Scary.
reality. It is.
Yeah.
It is
I
for
mean,
sure.
look at some stores tried the all self checkout. That didn't
Yeah.
work.
Yep.
But um getting into social media in the well, let's continue the social media and the pandemic. Do you think the pandemic had a negative effect on people's social media use in the way of got people more addicted because they had more free time?
Yeah. Yeah, I would say so. Um, I mean, I myself am a culprit of that. I try to limit my screen time, and I've even cut back on using some social media apps. I got rid of my Facebook. I'm very limited on Twitter. I haven't used TikTok in a very long time. I deleted that a long time ago. It's just that, I can't remember the term they use for it, that like nonstop scrolling. I can't remember exactly what it's called, but um, people just slide through. It's like, not death scrolling or something, but it's something along those lines where they're just glued to their phone and they're just watching reels over and over. And it's like you're trying to get this little in your brain, it's like a little dopamine hit, and you just crave it more and more and more. So, I mean, yeah, I would say so. The pandemic definitely made that more accessible. We weren't, having those face to face conversations anymore, and we were turning to social media to see what was going on with other people, and um, it's just a revolving cycle. It's hard to break once you're glued to your phone. Most definitely.
Hmm. I mean, it's to the point now where people will text someone who's sitting right next to them. I mean,
Yeah,
and it's
yeah,
been like that even pre-pandemic, but it's just the the sounding like an old person here, but the younger generation is just, especially the younger generation, is known for that, where
yeah,
they'd rather text a person who's sitting right next to them than actually have a conversation.
Yeah, no, that's a huge concern. And we've talked about this. We've even discussed this at our community health center. Um, the social aspect is just it's declining. It's not the same. Like I said, when we were younger, you'd go out with your friends and play. Now it's
Hmm.
I'm gonna stay glued to well, 3, 4, 5 year olds are glued to their iPads. So playing
Yeah,
games, it's crazy.
I mean, is there a good age to start kids on that where it's not a hindrance to their health?
Yeah. I mean, I know personally for myself, and cell phones weren't big when we were growing up. It was the
Hmm.
flip phone. I had my first phone. I think it was maybe eighth grade for my parents to come pick me up from practice. And it was just strictly for communication. Texting them to make sure I had a ride, things like that. But yeah, I don't know. I would say, uh, you know, we have these guidelines set forth. You can start driving at 16. You're old enough to go to the bar at 21 and buy alcohol, things like that. Not that I'm encouraging that, but I think there should be a age restriction on social media, and we've talked about that before. Because of all the negative outcomes with it, because of these examples like you provided, where people have actually committed suicide because they were bullied so much, and these are younger kids too. So it's terrible. I don't know how to fix it. It starts with people speaking up. Um,
And
I don't know
un-
an easy solution.
and unfortunately, kids are getting exposed to toxic, whether it's the political side of things or uh, even pornography side of things at such an early age. There's that. I think that's why you're getting more addicts to that
Hmm.
kind of stuff early ages because
Hmm.
they're they have the access unless parents are putting restrictions and tracking on the devices. Like these kids can search whatever they want and find whatever they want.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, with social media, it's so easy to lie
Hmm.
on, oh, this um, app requires you to be 18. Okay, well, just make your age, uh, uh, you make you old enough to be 18 when you're only 15 or something.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
that's.
It is really easy to get around those restrictions. So
Hmm.
I don't know how. Like I said, it's not a simple solution. I don't know how you regulate it, but there's people obviously. I mean, there's studies going out about it and stuff like that, but there's no simple answer to that because yeah, they make it easy to work around those age restrictions. You make a fake birthday. That's it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, our laws in general, when it comes to computers and technology, are way behind. I mean, just another form of abuse that is out there, especially now with the internet and computers, is cyber stalking. You
Mm-hmm.
know, and cyber harassment. So,
Yeah.
and there's no, as far as I am, as far as I've done research, there's really no laws that crack down on that.
No,
I
I
mean,
don't believe
from what you
so.
know.
Yeah, and it's interesting you bring that up. Not naming any specifics or anything like that, names or anything, obviously, but yeah, it's different when you're assessing people too, because like you said, cyber stalking in general. You're wondering if these people, some of your patients, are truly paranoid. Are they actually being threatened or harassed by somebody? It's hard to distinguish because some of these threats can be very real, and it's um, you know even more applicable to the social media side of things. It's like you can get right on there and you can, like, I've heard of stories of people hacking into other people's phones and listening in conversations and texting them things and threatening them. It's hard to believe sometimes.
I mean, speaking of getting into people's phones, I mean, these social media sites are kind of out of control with they you can't say that they don't listen in
No,
cuz
they do.
exactly. Like you'll
They
be
they base
talking
advertisements on what you're talking about.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly my point. So, um it's just crazy how dangerous social media is. Then the cancel culture, where you can't just disagree with someone nowadays. Yet you just um stop talking to them.
Hmm. Yeah.
Where it, if you it, where back in the day, if you disagree, you disagree, and you keep friendships. But I know so many people who have lost friendships because they disagree politically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, that's a huge divide. I try to at work too. We try to leave all that stuff out there, any kind of bias, political,
Hmm.
social, anything you could think of. Yeah, it tends to divide people instead of bring them together. It's sad. You hope for unity at some point, where we all just love one another, but that it's even harder with social media nowadays, dividing people even more. So. I really have nothing good to say about it. Other than making access to education more available,
Hmm.
things like that. But just a lot of negatives.
I mean, it does help people connect, like
Yeah, yeah.
where,
No, I agree with that.
but and or like especially with group messaging nowadays, like being able to send out a message to a bunch of people if um they like, for example, like for a like reunion of some sort, like um it's nice to be able to send a chain message to everybody instead of having to send to each person separately.
Yeah.
But other than that, it's aggravating. It's nice to kind of keep up with people too,
Hmm.
who you went to school with, but at the same time, it's like how if you're too hung up on what other people are doing, then that's also not good for your health.
Yep. Preach it. That's so true. It's so true. That contributes back to the anxiety that we're talking about.
Oh yeah, and anxiety is a dangerous thing that can really twist somebody up.
Hmm. I
So
agree.
I mean, I I think it's important that people, if they're, and I think you said this too, um, but it's important to talk to people, and to me, or talk to people you trust. To me, it actually takes more strength to get the help, because especially as a man, like the stereotype is, oh, if you
Hmm.
get help or if you get counseling, you're weak. Actually,
Yeah,
to me, it's the opposite. It actually takes a lot of strength to admit you need the help.
I
So
agree.
like
I agree.
people, go ahead.
That's our biggest struggle is getting people in the door, and then when you get them in, you want to make sure they feel welcomed. You want to thank them for being there, and coming in, because often the hardest part is getting started on the journey.
Hmm.
So, like I said earlier, going in and being able and willing to talk to other people. And yeah, I agree with you, Eric. There's this huge dilemma around, especially men, that you're weak if you go seek help. But I agree, it's the
Hmm.
complete opposite. I think that's being strong if you do that.
Hmm. I mean, it's a big stigma.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Yeah.
I mean, like, I mean, the and we've done other shows about other mental health diagnoses and stuff and stigmas, but I mean, like bipolar or anything like that. There's so many stigmas around because it's like, yeah, stay away from those people. They're no good. No,
Mm-hmm.
that's not true. That if they're being if they're doing right by themselves and getting the help they need, they deserve a chance.
Right.
And that sounds horrible to say somebody doesn't deserve a chance, but if they're not getting the help they need,
Mm-hmm.
then it, you're if you're keeping them around, I don't know if you agree, but if you're keeping them around, um, and their actions are toxic, you're enabling them.
Yeah, yeah, it's that willingness to engage and actually be
Hmm.
present and be there. Yeah, it's huge. That even applies to my clients that suffer from addiction. If they're willing to put in the effort, if they're coming in and they're seeking help and they're doing, AA, NA, they're in group, they're in an IOP program, which is intensive outpatient, where they're putting in the effort. Everybody that does that definitely deserves a second chance. Because they are showing that they are willing to work on themselves and try to improve the quality of their life. So yeah, I agree with that.
And I mean, it's. I mean, I hate to say, you know, ditch somebody who's struggling, but if you're trying to give them the advice and they're not taking it, you can only do so much. And
Mm-hmm.
by, I mean, yes, support them, but maybe there's a point where you need to support them. And anybody listening, um, comment on the videos. But there's a point where you need to maybe help from a distance
Yeah.
until the not to
Yeah.
teach them a lesson, but to really show them what you're doing is not appropriate. You know,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
if somebody needs help, um, it and they're not getting it, it could affect the people around them.
Mm-hmm.
In a negative way. It could
Yeah.
affect the mental health of people around them, not
Most
just
definitely.
them.
It's a huge impact on others. And I always tell my patients, I said, you were exactly spot on when you said that. I can't change you. You have to change you. It starts with you always. It doesn't start with me. I can try to, push medications if you want or push therapy, all those things to kind of help get you where you want to be, but you have to actually be willing to engage. There's only so much that I can do from my side of things, and you kind of beat yourself up over that, but eventually, people do realize, oh, I have a problem, I have an addiction, I'm really struggling with my anxiety, my depression, and I need help. So they're willing to come in, and those are the people that I tend to try to really provide high quality care to, because they're showing the effort, they're putting in the work, and they're just willing to be there and be present. So I
And
agree.
presence is the key. I
Yep.
mean,
Mm-hmm.
it, willingness, presence, and self awareness
Mm-hmm.
is,
Huge.
yeah,
Huge.
self awareness is the biggest thing.
Yeah.
Um, and staying in the moment too.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that that's one thing I struggle with.
Yeah.
Whether it's looking back in the past or trying to figure out my future, where I mean nothing's guaranteed anyway, and you
Mm-hmm.
can't change the past, and
Right.
you don't know how the future's gonna fall.
Right.
But
Exactly.
so many people um, fall into the trap of worrying, and it's easier said than done to not fall into that trap.
No, most
But
definitely. Yeah.
I mean,
I mean, I
once you
myself,
could,
I'm not perfect. I fall into that trap all the time.
oh
You're
yeah,
right, Ben. You if you can stay away from being future oriented and being present and living there in that moment, it's going to improve your life dramatically.
Mhm.
Grounding, like you're saying, those are all like grounding techniques. It's a great way. It's a great way to improve stress, anxiety, depression. So I agree. Everything you're saying is spot on.
Thank you. Um, but okay, there was one other topic. Why I keep forgetting what um the topic is, but uh that I wanted to touch on. But I think awareness and not getting trapped in social media is a big thing because it's so easy to do, either when
Hmm.
you're bored or uh, depressed, uh,
Yes.
or yeah, as like a crutch to um, hide feelings, which is
Hmm.
easy to do. You could just scroll. You could try to scroll away your feelings, but that's just not gonna work.
No, it often makes it worse. It exacerbates the problem. So I
Hmm.
agree.
And getting into let's get deeper into the um, side of the um, our generation where uh, we're so nervous to answer a phone for a number that we don't know because it honestly going back to AI, it could be AI trying to scam us. You
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. I agree. That's huge. I mean, I do that myself sometimes. If it's a unknown number, I'll just tend to let it go to voicemail. Um, my thing, maybe not the best solution, but if it's an important phone call, they're gonna leave a message, and I'm gonna get back to them.
Hmm.
But yeah, it's huge. There's so many just unsolicited calls, and robot calls,
Hmm.
scams, whatever you want to say. But it's just gotten out of hand. It's another thing too with technology. So.
I mean, it's sad that it's gotten to that point
Mm-hmm.
because you used to be able to just answer the phone and if it's a solicitor, like, hey, no, thank you, hang up.
Yeah.
Now you have to worry about um, them recording you and using the voice, especially yes or no questions. If you pick up and they start asking you yes or no questions, anyone out there listening, if you don't already know, do not answer yes or no because
Mm-hmm.
they're recording you to get into your, bank account and other personal accounts.
Yeah. Yeah. So true.
It's like back in the day, caller ID didn't exist. Caller ID is kind of a lifesaver now.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I agree
I,
with you.
I remember when it was a big thing. Oh, this person has caller ID. You know,
Yeah. Now
but
it's just common.
yeah. Well, especially with cell phones.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Oh, especially.
nowadays, cell phones even tell you, "Oh, this is spam risk."
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they'll flag it sometimes, which is nice, but yeah, yeah, it's a tough it's undocumented terrain that we're in here. It's a new frontier with all this technology, so.
And it's scary because these scammers use people's numbers.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever had that happen where you get
No,
a
I haven't
call?
had that happen, thankfully, but yeah, I could see that happening for sure.
I've had that happen a couple times, and I think it actually ended up being possibly someone I know, actually someone we both know, who they lines got crossed up. I'll tell you off the air.
Okay,
Um,
sounds good.
but it was kind of funny when I got the call. I'm like, I think I know this person, but um, uh, now I'm sidetracked. But
No,
just,
you're fine.
I mean, it's crazy because like I've also gotten calls from a local business where I've called them back and they're like, we didn't call you.
Yeah, yeah, it's
Well,
scary.
yeah.
Same
It's
thing
like,
with junk
well,
email too.
someone's using, someone's using your number.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's
But
tough.
yeah, I know. Society is just so twisted. And
It is.
to the pandemic, I think the long term effects it's going to have just on the social side for not just the younger generation, but I think, or the younger two generations, but I think for everybody. I mean,
Hmm.
kids lost out on a lot of their big events for high school, you know, whether it's prom or graduation,
Hmm.
a lot of kids didn't get that.
No, no,
Like,
it's sad. So,
yeah, I mean, graduation, I remember because my sister graduated during that pandemic. Everybody had to sit in their car.
yeah, yeah.
That's no way to have a graduation.
No, no, I
They
was at
had to
the
do what they had to do.
right, right. There was no in person. I think I was the tail end of that before COVID hit and everything switched over to virtual. So
Hmm.
yeah, you miss out on a lot of big life events like that. It's unfortunate. And even working when I was working as a registered nurse in the hospital, not letting or limiting the amount of loved ones that are able to come in when someone's close to the end of their life. It's
Hmm.
kind of tough.
I can personally connect. My
Yeah,
grandpa was in that situation, and I don't think I saw him for the last about year
yeah,
because I couldn't go up there.
yeah. It's really tough. Can't imagine that's easy. So
No, and but I guess also taking into account, uh, well, not taking into account, but you mentioned that you were a nurse. What, um, as being a floor nurse, how did that affect you mentally?
I mean, a huge toll uh, mentally. You're seeing all these people struggling. It switched the whole dynamic up in the hospital. Like I said, limiting visitors, limiting hours. You could go see somebody. You have to wear all your protective equipment nonstop. I mean, we were wearing all kinds of stuff: gowns, gloves, respirator mask. Just a cloth mask over that, eye protection, everything. I mean, that just beats you up day in and day out. And that's probably contributing to the high burnout or turnover rate,
Hmm.
with floor nurses. A lot of people, a lot of new grads, I've spoken to a couple myself. Um, it's really hard for them. They end up leaving the bedside because they're getting so stressed out. And oftentimes, it's sad, but a lot of these nurses will end up developing some mental health symptoms themselves related to anxiety and depression because of some of the stuff that happened during the pandemic, the increased workload, the long hours, the sleepless nights where you're going in for overtime and you're just trying your best to keep people alive. So it's hard.
Um, on a slightly different note, talking about mental health, but um, do, do you know anybody in the education profession like that? Because a lot of people are dropping out of that profession, and it's because of the kids nowadays. Again, sounding old, but but like I've seen so many people just on social media because I follow or I'm friends with a lot of former teachers. Um, but a lot of them say they're quitting because it's just too much. You know,
Hmm.
have you, do you know anybody um, who uh, has uh, experienced that?
Yeah, it's definitely impacting. I think those are the two biggest professions that are being impacted: nursing and education. Huge. And we were actually just discussing this too. I know a couple educators. I was over at Kent State when I got my master's degree, and they're saying that the admission rate has actually decreased in universities. This is nationwide. And not as many people are going to school, whether that be financial or other reasons. But they're having a hard time getting these educators that want to come in and teach. just because they're so dang burnt out. And it just ends up being really tough. Um, tough on the education system, tough on the educators, tough on the students. With this lack of workforce in both education and applicable to nursing as well.
But just taking the education side, I mean, it's unfair to the students, but to a point, the students are the ones causing it. On
Mm-hmm.
top of the corrupt school districts and all that, but the students are the one. Some of them are the ones causing it
Yeah.
because the total disrespect. I
Yeah.
remember, I just ran into a old he I was talking to him, and he's like, nowadays kids tell you what they're gonna do. It's not
Mm-hmm.
like when we were kids, where adults told us what to do and we were expected to respect them.
Yep.
No, now it's kids run all over the teachers, and unfortunately, the not all in every case, but a lot of the cases, the administration doesn't do what they're you know what they could, I should say, not what they're supposed to, but what they could,
Yes.
because they're afraid of the parents.
Yeah. Yeah. Retaliation. It's huge.
Yeah,
I agree. It's tough.
because it's parenting is kind of, not saying I'm a professional or a parent, but you know, parents try to be their child's friend,
Mm-hmm.
and I I bet even psychologically that's probably not good.
No. No, that never usually works out. More of a You want to take more of a what's the word for it, authoritarian, not authoritative, that's different, authoritarian, where there's still some discipline there, but it's important to teach younger developing brains, respect, and just being willing to listen, and without having any kind of retaliation and stuff like that. So
Hmm. And just it's in, this goes back to something we've talked about multiple times, of connection, pa- parents and kids. That, I think, in a way, that lacks in a lot of cases. I mean,
hmm
people could be good parents but not know how to connect with their kid.
yeah, yeah, that's
And
huge.
psychologically, that's not good.
No, no. It often leads down a rabbit hole. You start hanging out with the wrong crowd and getting into things you shouldn't be getting into, and eventually, you know, maybe becoming part of the system. And it's just a revolving, like I said earlier. I think I mentioned revolving cycle. It's hard to break once you're in there.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's like addiction. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
when you get addicted, few people don't at one time or another relapse. Or am I
Mm-hmm.
wrong?
No, that's very true. Especially, talking to people that have participated in Alcoholics Anonymous. The magic number is 5. 5 years sober. Before that, you're at a very high risk of relapse. And I think once you hit the 5 year mark, it goes up to like a 80 something percent of maintaining sobriety. So again, this deals with huge that social connection, getting to those meetings and actively willing to engage and participate and being present there, and
Hmm.
getting something out of that. So
And
huge.
again, connecting with other people who go who are experiencing the same thing is
Yeah,
important because
exactly.
they could help each other through.
Right. And it might not be the exact specific experience. Everybody has an individualized experience, but
Hmm.
you can take away some of that wisdom from some of these people that have been 10, 20,
Hmm.
30 years sober, what they've
Hmm.
done, what's worked well from them. Maybe you can get a little piece of advice and apply that to your life. So,
Like
yeah.
personally, I hate when people say, like, once an addict, always an addict. There's a little truth to that, but they're more likely to fall back into it. But just because they do that doesn't mean that or just because they were once addicts doesn't automatically mean that they're going to fall back.
Right.
Relapse is higher that way, but again, it doesn't mean it's going to relapse. So it annoys me when I hear people say, once an addict, always an addict,
I
or
agree
stuff
with
like
you.
that.
I
Like,
agree with you. Yeah.
So anyway, with that, I think that's all I have. Yes,
Sounds good.
that is all I have.
It was good
So
chatting.
yeah, thank you for joining.
Yeah,
I
most definitely.
will.
Anytime.
Okay, so I will close the stream. Thanks everybody for listening. Have a